Hello, in this video we are going to go over dividing fraction by a fraction. Let's take a look at our first problem. You have 7/8 pounds of meat and you use 1/8 pound for each hamburger. How many hamburgers can you make? So again, with division of fractions, you're thinking how many 1/8 are in 7/8. And to show this visually, we're first going to make ourselves a model. As you can see, I broke this strip up in 2/8, and I have 7/8. So I'm just going to make a line here instead of shading it in to say to the left of that line, that's what I have. I have 7/8. Now I'm going to take it 1/8 at a time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7/8 divided by 1/8 equals 7. I have 7/8 and I'm taking them 1/8 at a time. Now let's take a look at something similar. You have 7/8 pounds of meat and you use 2/8 pound for each hamburger. How many hamburgers can you make? Once again, I have a strip that I broke into eighths. I'm just going to signify that to the left of this red line I have 7/8. This time I'm taking it 2/8 at a time. I have 7/8 and I'm taking them 2 at a time. So go. It's 2 at a time, another 2 at a time, another 2 at a time, and I have 1 left over. I have 1 out of 2. Therefore, 7/8 divided by 2/8 equals 3, and I have 1 piece out of 2 in my group. So one last one. You have 7/8 pounds of meat and you use 3/8 pounds for each hamburger. How many hamburgers can you make? So I'm going to signify again that I have those 7/8, and this time I'm taking the eighths 3 at a time. So here's 3, and here's another 3, and then I have 1 out of my 3 left over. So therefore, my 7/8 divided by 3/8, I have 2 groups and 1 piece out of 3 in my group. Now let's analyze the number sentences we had. We started with 7/8 and we divided 1/8 and we got 7 as our answer. Then we did 7/8 and divided by 2/8 and got 3 1/2. And finally, we had 7/8 divided 3/8 and got 2 1/3. Well, let's take a look at our first one over on the left-hand side. If you notice, we look at our denominators and numerators. Okay, I do 7 divided by 7. I went right across my numerators, and I got 7 as my answer. And if I did 8 divided by 8, I would have 1. And 7 over 1 has 7. So in that case, I just divided across my numerators and then divided across my denominators. If I take a look at my second one, and I go across my numerators, and I do 7 divided by 2, well, 7 divided by Let's see what happens in this situation. I have 3/4 pound of meat, and each hamburger uses 1/8 pound of meat. How many hamburgers can I make? Well, let's look back again at that last situation. Remember here we had 7/8 pounds of meat and we took each one at a time. So let's take a look and let's draw again a model for ourselves. All right, and I have 3/4 pounds of meat. So I'm going to look here, and I have 3/4. So if I go by the same thought, I have 3/4 pounds of meat, and I'm taking them 1/8 at a time. Right now I can't do that because I have fourths. So what I need to do is make things easier and make them into eighths so that I can take them 1/8 at a time. So let's make them into eighths now. And now how many eighths do I have? Well, I have 6/8. So now I can take them 1/8 at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So therefore, my problem started out with I had 3/4 and I wanted to take them 1/8 at a time and I would get 6. But before I did that, I changed them into eighths. So therefore, I had 6/8 and I took them 1/8 at a time and I ended up with 6. Well, what did I do? I made a common denominator and then I was able to follow divide across. And in this problem, I have 2.5 pounds of meat, and each hamburger is 1/4 pound. How many hamburgers can I make? So I have, in this situation, I have 2 whole pounds of meat. So I have all of the first one. So we have all of this, that's my 2 wholes. And then in this one, we have half. Okay, and we want to see how many 1/4 pound burgers I can make. So I'm taking 2.5 pounds, 1/4 at a time. So in order to take 1/4 at a time, I would need to break them into quarters. So if I'm breaking everything into quarters, and then technically that would have been the quarter here, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 10 quarters now, and I am taking them 1 at a time. So if I'm taking them 1 at a time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I would have 10 as my answer, and I would be able to make 10 hamburgers. We change it up a little bit. We have 2.5 pounds of meat, and each hamburger is a giant 3/4 pound hamburger. How many hamburgers can I make? Well, again, I want to take 2.5 pounds, 3/4 at a time. In order to do that, we need to break them all up into quarters, just like we did before. And then those are 2. So now I'm taking them 3 at a time. That's one set of 3. That's another set of 3. That's another set of 3. And I have 1 out of 3 left over. So I have 10/4 divided by 3/4. Okay, I could just focus on my numerators if I want to. And you're going to get 10 divided by 3. Okay, or 10 over 3, which is 3 1/3, just like our picture shows. Now let's try these without drawing pictures and just using the algorithm of if I have a common denominator, I can divide across. So my first one, I have 1 3/5 divided by 2/5, which again means I'm taking 1 3/5, 2/5 at a time. So I'm going to change my 1 3/5 into an improper fraction. I'm cutting up my wholes just like I did visually in the page before. So I have 8/5. If I have 8/5, I want to take them 2/5 at a time. I can do that because my denominators are the same. We have the same size pieces. So then I can just divide across, and I will get 4. because 5 divided by 5 is 1, and anything over 1 is itself. 9/10 divided by 4/10. I have 9/10, and I'm taking them 4 at a time. So I have the same denominator, the same size pieces, so I can just say 9 divided by 4. I can express it this way so it's easier to simplify, and 4 goes into 9 twice with 1/4 left over. So 9/10 divided by 4/10 is 2 1/4. Now I'm going to do 1/3 divided by 4/9. I have 1/3 and I'm taking them 4/9 at a time. Can't do it that way unless I have ninths for both of them. So I'm going to find the common denominator, which is 9. So 1/3 as ninths is 3/9 divided by 4/9, and I'm going to just divide across my numerators, and I will get 3 divided by 4, or 3/4. In summary, when we are dividing fractions, you are going to find a common denominator and then divide across, focusing on the numerators. Good luck!